So much time and energy are spent on how to make and keep employees engaged. And Margaret Cousins once said that appreciation can make a day, even change a life. Your willingness to put into words is all that is necessary. So much work has been done to prove that recognizing employees leads to a more engaged workforce. There is even a national study from the Society for Human Resource Management, published in 2015, that found that highly engaged employees had almost universally been praised at work, with low engaged employees responding the opposite. And similar to that, highly engaged employees almost universally said that their manager cares about them, with the opposite being reported by low engaged employees. That was a national study that essentially says there is a link between employee recognition and manager investment and employee engagement. We now have data specific to UMC that speaks to this national study and what we have always suspected. University Medical Center in New Orleans rolled out nDorse hospital-wide in early July of 2017 as a way to foster a culture of recognition and to help develop a culture of excellence throughout the hospital. In just under 300 days, the following measurable data has been collected. There have been 14,406 endorsements sent. There are 1,230 active users within nDorse at UMC, which has close to 2,400 employees. UMC has just crossed the 50% adoption rate among employees. However, around 80% of all employees have received at least one endorsement. That's a lot of recognition in just around 9 months. But let's get to the meat of it. Is this impacting employee engagement? We pulled data from the engagement surveys, which were proctored in October of 2017, and cross-referenced that with data that we pulled from nDorse during its first 90 days of use. We only used data from nDorse from July of 2017 until October of 2017, when the engagement surveys closed. We didn't pull any data after the engagement survey window was closed. The data collected looked at 52 departments and 2,160 employees spread across the entire hospital. We wanted to see if our beginning premise is true. That is, that employees who are recognized will in turn be highly engaged. So we looked at departments that had a high number of endorsements to see if there was a correlation between the average number of endorsements received by each employee and the overall rating as a place to work question. So we're looking at the overall rating as a place to work on the y-axis. Down here on the x-axis, we're comparing it to the average number of endorsements per person. We'll call this first grouping the one endorsement group. This group represents 17 departments in which employees in these 17 departments received about one endorsement. These departments grew on average 4.45 points on the rating as a place to work question. The second group we'll call the two endorsement group. This group also represents around 17 departments, and on average employees within these departments received two endorsements. This grouping grew on average 6.55 points. And then our final grouping also represents around 17 departments. On average, these employees received 3 or more endorsements, and these departments grew 7.21 points on the rating as a place to work question. And when we put all of this data from the 52 departments into a linear regression calculator, we found that there was a 0.8 correlation between the number of endorsements that a person received and the growth in the rating as a place to work score, essentially saying that departments in which employees received more endorsements saw their overall rating as a place to work score increase more. However, what we really wanted to see was, does it actually have an impact on employee engagement when an employee's direct manager recognizes you? Using the data that we pulled from nDorse, and once again the annual engagement survey, we were able to see that correlation. We looked at 3 different groupings this time. The first, low manager utilization of 0 to 7%. What that means is a direct manager only recognized between 0 to 7% of their direct reports in nDorse. The second grouping was the medium manager utilization. That manager only recognized between 8 and 24% of their direct reports. And finally, we have the high manager utilization. This is a manager who recognized 25% or more of their direct reports in nDorse. We then compared that data to 3 different buckets, the first being overall rating as a place to work, exactly like the previous 2 pieces of data. We then looked at manager investment as a key driver within the survey, and then we looked at peer-to-peer relationships as a key driver within the survey. Using the rating as a place to work data from the annual engagement survey, we compared that to the 3 new groupings. Our first grouping, the low manager endorsement group, represents departments in which less than 7% of the employees were recognized by their direct manager. In this grouping, we found that the scores grew 3.53 points. Our second grouping, the medium manager endorsements, represents departments in which less than 24% of their employees were recognized, and in these departments we saw an average growth of 4.31 points. And then in our high manager endorsements grouping, where over 24% of employees had been recognized by their direct manager, on average, these departments saw growth of 7.04 points. That's pretty significant growth. Drilling down deeper into these results using the same groupings as before, we'll see if manager recognition within nDorse had an impact on manager investment overall. When looking at the manager investment growth from 2016 to 2017, here's what we found. In the grouping of low manager endorsements, they grew on average 0.69 points year over year. The medium manager endorsements grew, on average, 1.94 points year over year. And the high manager endorsements group grew on average 7.32 points from 2016 to 2017. But then we wanted to look at one more thing using those same groupings as before. What impact does this have on peer-to-peer relationships? This is going off of the assumption that if a manager recognizes their employees, it's going to trickle down into building a positive culture. And here's what we found looking at the year-over-year growth of the peer-to-peer relationships grouping. In our low manager endorsements group, we actually found that peer relationships decreased 1.01 points year over year. In our medium manager endorsements grouping, we found that scores on average decreased 0.17 points on the peer-to-peer relationship score. But in departments that had a high manager endorsements of direct reports, we saw peer-to-peer relationship scores grow on average 4.76 points from 2016 to 2017. So in short, we saw an increase in engagement scores almost across the board, which is fantastic. We saw that there was positive correlation between genuine and specific pieces of recognition and increased employee engagement. So big takeaways, catch your team doing something right and recognize them for it.